Salutations, fellow colleagues and educators. This is Dr. Ezad here. I'm a language arts teacher in this great state of New Jersey. Specifically, I'm located in the Jersey City area. What with the current state of affairs, the need for quality virtual education is great. And I've designed this virtual video workshop entitled Tools and Tactics, Danielson in Distance Learning and Other Frameworks, to demonstrate to my colleagues how the distance learning tools that are available to educators can be used to facilitate this administration of quality distance learning. Essentially, what you will be looking at is a two-part video that will demonstrate the following. 1, tools that are available through Google Classroom. 2, how to locate and use those tools. And 3, how those tools can be systemically leveraged to facilitate interactions that complement various evaluation frameworks that drive our pedagogy. The first two objectives will be met in the first half of the video, and the third will be met in the second half, during which I will briefly reintroduce myself, and the objective for the second half of this virtual video workshop. Now, although my video focuses on Google Classroom, many of the tools are either available without a Google Classroom account, like Docs and Forms, or they will have equivalents in other learning management systems. The same can be said of the evaluation framework on which my video focuses. I do explore other New Jersey Department of Education approved frameworks other than Danielson in my video, but of course, I could not reference them all. However, pieces of criteria in one framework almost invariably have counterparts in another. As such, I encourage you to pause the video at key moments to reflect on some of the framework criteria that my video discusses in the second half and how it may be indicative of some component of a piece of criteria outlined in the framework that your school or school district utilizes. And I also invite you to pause at key moments and locate the tools of which I review on your Google Classroom accounts, or any tools that perform a similar function on whatever LMS you happen to be using. And as I am making this video to extend support to my fellow colleagues, I will extend support beyond this video, as you can feel free to contact me at aezad@jcboe.org, should you have any questions or need ideas or recommendations. So, without any further ado, let us delve into the first part of the video, where the distance learning tools afforded through Google Classroom are reviewed. Greetings, colleagues. This is the first video in a series in which ways to complement various components of the Danielson evaluation framework in a virtual setting are covered. This series will deal specifically with the Google Classroom LMS, and as such, we'll review the various tools that LMS has to offer first. Let's start with the most basic elements and then move on to the more complex. Go to this plus sign to create a class, and fill in the appropriate fields, which include the name of the class, section, and room number and subject. Once set up, under the Stream tab, you will notice the space where you can share things with the class. You can type various messages, and you'll also notice that you can add documents, links to websites, files from your computer, and/or videos from YouTube. And if you click over here, you can choose to share this post with other select classes as well. You can also choose to only share this with select students. Under the Classwork tab, you will see the Create button, which allows you to make different assessment types. We are starting with the assignments here, in which you can also attach different documents and/or video. If you want to add a YouTube video, for instance, just click on the YouTube icon, type the name of the video, and click on the appropriate result. You can also click here to add various types of files. This will allow you to select a file from your drive, and this will allow you to select a file from your computer. And if you go to the Google Drive option in the drop-down, you get the same options. And on the right here, you will see that you can also select what classes and students to which you are assigning this as well. And down below here, we have the Rubric Generator. You type the name and criteria here, and then a point value, and what the point value indicates goes in the fields below. Clicking the plus icon on the right allows you to create another point value for that same piece of criteria. You can continue to add point values that are associated with different levels of proficiency for that piece of criteria, and once you are done with that, you can create another piece of criteria here. Just duplicate the criteria and change the name of it in the appropriate field.
And you can edit the description of the level associated with this particular point value in the description section. You can also change the order in which the different scores and levels of each piece of criteria appear. And this is how the rubric will look on your end. You can also reuse rubrics that you have created for other previous assignments or assignments in other classes. And this is the student view of the rubric with the pieces of criteria on the side. Below will be a section to add private comments that only the student can see. And above that, you will see that you can run originality reports on students' work by clicking. You will have to have enabled that when creating the assignment, and if there are no plagiarized passages, it will not flag any segments of the student's work. If there are, however, the report will indicate how many, and when you click, it will highlight the plagiarized passage, matching it to its original source. Also note that you are able to leave comments on whatever type of documents students choose to create in response to the assignment. As soon as you leave a comment on the student's doc by highlighting it and clicking on the comment icon, the comment is visible to the student, even if the document contains work that is in progress. Once students see the comment, they are able to reply. This works essentially the same way on slides, where you can click on an image or a segment of text in the slide or in the speaker notes, and click on the comment icon to leave a comment. And when the students click on a particular element on which a comment was left, that comment moves to the forefront. Students will also be able to identify which slides have comments on them, as dialog boxes will appear beside those particular slides in the slide navigation pane. You can do the same on a Google Sheet by clicking on a particular cell and clicking on the comment icon, and after you leave a comment, it will be visible when the cursor is hovering over the cell to which the comment pertains. And the fact that a cell contains a comment will be noted by this marker in the corner of the cell. And the same applies to a Google drawing, in which you can click on any elements of the drawing, whether they be shapes or text boxes, to leave a comment. If you click on a quiz assignment, a Google form will automatically be generated and attached to the assignment. And when you click on the blank quiz, you can create a variety of question types. And when you click on the drop-down menu, you see this variety. Let's just make this a checkbox question. After adding all of the options, you can click down here and add an answer key, which will actually allow you to not only mark off the correct answer, but you can also provide feedback for the answer to the question should the student respond inaccurately. In this section, you can also link resources such as websites and YouTube videos, and those resources will appear to the student for incorrect answers when the form provides them with their feedback. Google Forms also allows you to add resources to the form itself. If you click on the YouTube icon, for instance, it will allow you to search for the video. Once you've found it, click on the video and it is embedded into the form. Upon receiving responses from students, you can click on the Responses tab, where you will be provided with much valuable data, such as central tendency measures for scores, and data that provides a sense of which items were responded to accurately or inaccurately. You can also create questions. You will pose the question in this space and provide instructions. As with the assignments, you can also create resources students might have to reference for the question, or you can add them from your Google Drive or computer. If you have these two question types from which you can choose, I'll just make this a multiple choice question. This is how the question will appear to students, and when you click here to see responses, you will see how many students selected a particular item. A list of students would also be displayed on the left for you to see individual answers. Next, the material option will allow you to generate an assortment of resources for students. As with all of the other assignment types, you can add videos, links to websites, and files from your computer or drive. The only difference is that you are not necessarily providing students with any questions, prompts, or tasks to which they must respond. And lastly, you can create topics. Topics essentially allows you to organize resources and assignments more efficiently. Notice that after I've created this topic that I have entitled Project Resources, an empty folder appears. This is because I haven't designated this topic to any assignments, quizzes, questions, etc. So let's click here to edit the material that I just posted on the top here, and click on the drop-down menu for topics, where all created topics will be listed. Now you'll see that the material that I have entitled Resources for Reference is now under the Project Resources topic. Essentially, all assignments, questions, quizzes, and material that have been designated to a certain topic will appear under that topic. So if I create another topic, like this one, which I'm entitling Splitting an Atom, and I create new material, perhaps by adding a relevant YouTube video for students to reference, I can designate the Splitting an Atom topic to it, and it will only appear under that topic. Note that you can designate topics to any of the different postings that you create, whether they be assignments, quizzes, questions, or material. The teacher and students can also leave comments on each of those posting types, and if you click here, you can mute students and delete comments, and teachers and students can specifically reply to one another. Also keep in mind that any Google Documents, slides, sheets, or drawings that are posted will allow for tracking of viewership of the documents. By clicking on this icon, an activity dashboard will appear, and you can see who has viewed the documents and when the last viewing was. So, if you posted a doc under materials or assignments that all or specific students were to view, you can clearly see if they had or had not viewed it and when their latest viewing of the document was. And this envelope icon here allows you to send a mass email either to all of your students or only those who have not yet viewed the document. Now on to the Google Calendar link, which is also available under the Classwork tab. If you first apply assignment dates to assignments and quizzes, and then you click on the Google Calendar link, you will see that assignment's due date reflected in the calendar. Here you see the assignment I just edited along with the summer reading projects. Notice how the assignment names are color-coded to correspond with their different classes. Students will see the due dates for all of their assignments for each of their classes reflected as well. When you hover over the assignment, the name and description of the assignment that you created appears. Now on to the Google Meet link, which also appears under the Classwork tab. You can click here to generate a Meet link, which will appear here under the Classroom Stream page. Students should be able to click on it from here as well. You'll then be brought to this page, where you or participants can choose to turn off their camera and or their mic before entering the session. And when your participants enter, others will be able to either see them or their avatars. As a presenter, you have the option of entering present mode, where you can share either your entire computer screen or a particular window or tab you might have open. If you opt for the latter two options, this pop-up window will appear with a list of your open tabs or windows, and you can select which one you want your participants to see. You can also provide captions for what is being spoken during the meeting. There is a bit of a delay, and I did not record the audio, but you see the captions appearing to denote what I spoke. You can also record meetings. When you're ready to stop recording, click Stop Recording, and the recording will be automatically saved to your Google Drive. After processing, the recording will appear in your email. You can also create breakout rooms to divide the participants in the Google Meet into smaller groups, and you could use the Google Meet and Breakout Room browser extension for this. I'll demonstrate where to go to get this extension in a moment, but once activated and you click on the icon, you will see a list of all the attendees here. Then you can go to the Group Generator, indicate how many groups in this dropdown, and there are no participants, so I'll just add myself as a participant and repeat the process. And then you'll see me in that one group, and would there have been more participants here, each group would be appropriately populated. And then when you click on the individual groups, new tabs will be open, so you can join these smaller meets in which each group of students is. And then you can join those meetings to check up on them. In order to get the appropriate browser extensions to create breakout rooms, you can go to the Windows section from your Chrome browser, and then go to Extensions. There are two that you will need to make this work: Google Meet Attendees in Breakout Rooms, and Google Meet Grid View, and you could search for them and add them.
Greetings, fellow scholars and colleagues. It's Dr. Ezad here. I'm a language arts teacher and coordinator for my department in Jersey City, New Jersey, and I am providing you with this video to demonstrate how teachers can tactically utilize the tools of distance learning to replicate best practices that would normally be implemented in a physical classroom. And we will be doing that by exploring how various distance learning tools were utilized in this demo Google Classroom I have right here.
With that said, I'd like you to take a look at these three quotes here and determine how much they resonate with you. You can feel free to express such in the comments below. I anticipate that many people may have agreed with at least one of these statements to various degrees, and each of these statements basically reflect caveats expressed by teachers, students, and parents alike. Essentially, there seems to be a prevailing sentiment among various groups of individuals that distance learning is inherently inferior to face-to-face instruction, that distance learning is a watered-down version of what teachers typically do in the classroom. On the contrary, with the appropriate tools and knowledge as to how to leverage them, best practices can be replicated and can even be enhanced through distance learning tools, and that is what this video is going to demonstrate. With that said, here are the objectives for this video. We will see how the various tools afforded by distance learning platforms like Google and Google Classroom can complement the components of various frameworks that inform our instructional practices. And we will do this by examining features of forms, various methods to promote student interaction, and features of Google Docs, and features of Google Meet. Now, the LMS that I am working with in this video is Google Classroom, but Forms and Docs are available outside of Google Classroom and can be utilized in conjunction with other learning management systems. We will also be looking at features of these tools in conjunction with various New Jersey Department of Education approved evaluation frameworks, such as Danielson, to see how the leveraging of these tools that I have modeled complement the components of those frameworks. Let us begin with an overview of the features of Google Forms for the purpose of assessments. So, as I mentioned before, on Google Classroom you can create a quiz assignment which will automatically generate a blank form for you. Remember to type the title and the instructions. And if you type name in the first field for the question, the form will automatically change the answer type to short answer, which is one of the many question types you can create. Now, when you click on this plus sign, you can create a new question, type the question here, and then the drop-down menu will provide you with a list of all the different question types that you can create, each of which has different purposes. You can create multiple choice questions, checkboxes, drop-downs, and Likert scales. But in the interest of keeping things simple, we will just create a quiz with multiple choice and checkbox questions, both of which will have correct responses, which can be designated here. The reason for this is because Google Forms has a feedback feature, of which I made mention in the previous video, that allows for feedback and relevant resources to be released upon students receiving their scores, should they respond to specific items inaccurately. And systemic leveraging of this feature, as you will see, complements best practices outlined by Danielson and other approved frameworks. Now remember, you will also want to adjust the settings for use of this distance learning tool to appropriately complement these best practices. You will want to make sure that students can only respond once, and under the Quizzes tab, you can also set up the quiz to release feedback immediately or after the teacher has reviewed all the responses. This can mitigate any issues concerned with students sharing answers during asynchronous learning, which is especially important as we will be allowing students to view missed questions and the correct answers. Also note that if you are not using Google Classroom, you will have to make the form a quiz under this Quiz tab. Before we examine how these features that we just activated on the Google form can be used to complement the different critical attributes of various evaluation frameworks, let us review those components of those frameworks first. With respect to the Charlotte Danielson framework, students should be afforded opportunities for reflection, receive high-quality feedback from different sources, and teachers ought not move on until every student has met the learning objectives. There are parallels to this in the Classroom Strategies Scale framework, which states that students be afforded the ability to track their own progress, and the Pearson framework for the observation of effective teaching, which posits that teachers be persistent in helping students achieve learning goals. So let's see how this plays out when students take the quiz. Under the assignment I have created, students can click on the form to take a quiz. I have provided resources and feedback for both of these items here, but I will intentionally only answer one question inaccurately. I'm going to now submit my responses. And I had set this to give students feedback immediately, so I'm just going to click here to see my responses. Notice how I am only getting feedback and having resources released for the item that I responded to inaccurately. Now, after going over the feedback and the accompanying resource for the answers the students responded to inaccurately, which affords students the ability to monitor their own progress, what with them knowing what concepts or skills they would have to master to get a better score, I always give students an opportunity to gain the points lost for that item by having them provide an explanation as to why the correct choice was the best answer. Their response has to be based on the resource that I had provided to them, so the students are not only receiving feedback that you might not necessarily be readily available to provide yourself, they are also able to reflect on any misconceptions they had as well. I also have an option for students to provide this explanation with sentence stems available for students who might struggle with writing, thereby indicating that I do not consider a lesson finished until every student has a substantial understanding. This is also indicative of my persistence in helping students achieve learning goals, even if I am not physically present. Moreover, systemic use of such tools in an asynchronous learning context affords students more time to digest the resources released to them, which allows for them to generate more meaningful responses. Now let's move on to other critical attributes of Danielson before delving into the different assignment types that one can create on Google Classroom, all of which can be emulated on any other LMS. So according to Danielson, students should be able to articulate what they are learning, be engaged in discussion with the teacher and their peers, initiating questions when appropriate, must monitor their own understanding through teacher-provided resources or feedback, and the teacher ought to be constantly taking the pulse of the class. In my demo class, I fulfill all the criteria outlined by these components of Danielson through the different assignment types that I had created under the Daily Do Now's RST Unit Week 2 topic. For instance, I have used Google Classroom's question tool to generate a question asking students how confident they are in completing the body paragraphs for this research simulation task, which is the final product for this unit that I have outlined on Google Classroom. The question itself indicates to students that they will be focusing on body paragraphs for this particular day, and I could have included a description of the New Jersey State Learning Standard that outlines the skills needed to write a body paragraph, but I did that in one of the do nows for the previous week. In any case, aside from allowing students to articulate what they are learning for the day, how to write a body paragraph, the questions feature provides a tally of how many students selected a particular response and which students selected said response, and that allows both for the student to monitor their own progress and the teacher to know which students to prioritize or send additional resources to. For example, I personally would prioritize the students who responded not confident at all by leaving feedback on their Google Docs on which they would be completing their assignments first, and/or sending them extra resources. Moreover, posing such a question is indicative of the teachers checking the pulse of the class, as this is one method of ongoing formative assessment that the teacher leverages to aid the students in meeting learning objectives. This can also be easily replicated in a Google form, should one not have access to Google Classroom. In other Do Now activities for this week, students are encouraged to provide feedback to peers according to rubric criteria, which is attached as a resource, and ideate ways to construct the concluding paragraph and share their ideas with peers. Their ideas should be based on the learning objective, which is drawn from the New Jersey State Learning Standard for writing a concluding paragraph, and they are to respond with their ideas as a class comment and critique the response of their peers. Leveraging distance learning tools in such ways also complements performance indicators of the Pearson framework for the observation of effective teaching, which states that activities address different needs of different students and break learning activities into steps, as the question in and of itself is indicative of one set of skills pertaining to essay writing being isolated and prioritized for that day. Moreover, the teacher is using this data to provide scaffolds to groups of students as necessary, among other things, such as potential grouping, etc. Also, students are meaningfully engaging in dialogue with one another to strengthen their own ideas and execution of related skills, thereby affording them the ability to explain the purpose of group work, all of which is explicitly outlined in the Classroom Strategies Scale framework. Teachers can also use features of Google Docs on which students can complete assignments to help students track their progress, a piece of criteria that is outlined by these different evaluation models. Google Docs has a comments feature, for instance, that allows the teacher to leave comments on specific portions of the doc, which are immediately visible to the student on the doc. As such, this works perfectly with both synchronous learning and asynchronous learning, as students can look at and apply the feedback in real time or at their leisure. Additionally, there is a vast functional improvement in the sense that the teachers can provide more targeted feedback as the comment is associated with a highlighted area, so it is clear as to what portion of the doc the feedback pertains. This allows for more extensive feedback than is afforded when trying to fit it in all the margins of a paper. You even have a comment bank here, lest you find yourself leaving some of the same comments for students with similar or recurring issues. And once the comment is in the bank, when you start typing a new comment, it comes up as a suggestion, saving the teacher a lot of time. Students can also leave each other comments when peer editing. All they would have to do is share the doc with a partner or even a small group, and they can all offer each other feedback. Also, with respect to students being able to articulate learning objectives for a particular day or assignment, note that when you assign due dates to any assignment type, it is reflected here in the Google Calendar section, with a description of the assignment being made available once clicked on. Now, even though Google Docs and class comments satisfy criteria outlined by critical attributes of different frameworks, you may still want to have students engage in real-time discussion, and that can be accomplished through Google Meet. As stated in the previous video, if you go to the class stream in Google Classroom, you can generate a link that all students can see and have access to. So if you want to designate a time for a whole group discussion or meetings with groups of students, you can have all students log on through this link. You can also access Google Meets through your Gmail and generate a link from there. If you want students to enter small groups, you can use the Google Meets and Breakout Rooms extension in order to create individual meets for smaller groups of students. Using the Group Generator, you can assign students into a designated room. Once you click on the group, a new tab will be generated for that meet, and you can provide your students with that link in the chat. Now, when using breakout rooms, some teachers are nervous about not being able to monitor students, but this issue is mitigated with the Google Meets and Breakout Rooms extension, as you can keep the tabs for all the groups open, thus allowing you to listen to all groups at once. In order to keep that from sounding too chaotic, you can download the volume control extension, which will allow you to lower the volume of specific tabs. As such, you can lower the volume of a tab containing a breakout room with which you are not directly working, while still being able to listen in on those groups, still taking the pulse of the class.
So we'll leave it right here, as you have now gained a good idea as to how leveraging these various distance learning tools can facilitate interactions that complement essentially all of Domain 3 of Danielson, as well as various components of the Classroom Strategies Scale framework and the Pearson framework for the observation of effective teaching. And as these teacher evaluation frameworks tend to overlap, such use of distance learning tools will certainly complement components of other frameworks approved by the state of New Jersey. With that said, I will leave you with this to mull over. How else can these tools be used to facilitate interactions that complement the critical attributes of the framework that your educational institutions use? Sharing your musings would be most appreciated, so feel free to leave a comment, like, and subscribe.